It is week 10 in college football, the final weekend of games before our first college football playoff rankings. I'm Chris Hassel, filling in for Tommy Tran this week. A lot of ranked teams on the road this weekend. 13 ranked teams are playing away from home. I'm including Georgia there, playing away from home in Jacksonville against Florida. 3 of those ranked teams are playing on the road against another ranked team. And lower ranked teams have a 15-13 record against higher ranked teams this season. Now, this was a week that before the season, it looked better on paper than it does now, but we didn't have that Vandy Texas game circled. Who would have thought Vandy would be in the top 10 and Texas would not for this matchup? I'm joined now by Danny Kanell and Chip Patterson. And Chip, Danny is sizzling right now. Last 3 weeks, 41-18, DK. What's up?
You know, just this is when the cream rises to the top, when you have the expertise of a former player who's out there breaking down film 24/7. This is when the intellect and IQ come to the forefront.
Wow, a few slights at Chip there.
Yeah, well, no, listen, he had it on the played the game. Intellect and IQ is where we've really gone over the top.
That's
right
where I
there.
separate.
But you know what?
That's the true separation.
Listen, Danny is cooking right now, and this is competition, but healthy competition. We do love to see it. It's iron sharpens iron, Chris. Let's go.
Right.
All right, great competition this weekend at noon Eastern time on Saturday. Number 9 Vandy is at number 20 Texas. The Longhorns, Danny, are favored here by 2.5, but Arch Manning, as of Wednesday, when we're doing this, is still in concussion protocol.
That's a part of the reason for my play, but not all of it. I would feel better about Texas, backing Texas, if I knew Arch was going to play. But even if it's Matthew Caldwell, I still think this is going to be a game that features defense. So I'm going to go ahead and take the under in this game. I think Texas' defense is still one of the better units out there, potentially, that Vanderbilt has played. And I look at Vanderbilt, and I see them as a team offensively that's come back to earth a little bit. Diego Pavia, his numbers statistically, especially passing the football, have come down dramatically. And I think the book is out. If you can slow down the Vanderbilt running game, put more of the shoulders on Vanderbilt's offensive passing game, then it's a recipe to slow them down. I think Texas is able to do that, and I don't trust Texas's offense yet versus anybody, whether it's Arch or if it's Matthew Caldwell. So I think it's a lower scoring game. I'll take the under.
Chip, Texas has not beaten a top 10 team at home since the Charlie Strong era. It was back in 2016. It's been almost a decade.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen here. I think Vanderbilt goes into DKR. I think they come out with the win. I think this Texas team has really been, worn down. I think they've been pulled through this season. Nothing has lived up to the expectations that come with being the number 1 team overall. And while Steve Sarkisian can talk a lot about how that comeback against Mississippi State was a big culture win, I think that some of the alarm bells are still going off. And coming back home is not necessarily going to repair them. The book might be out, but the book is off. And what I mean is the sports book is off on Vanderbilt. One of the best against the spread teams in the country, 6-2 on the year. And yes, if you look at their cover margin per game, one of the best in the country as well. There might be a letdown moment for this Commodores team, but it is not going to be as they go into Austin. I will take Vanderbilt plus those 2.5 points.
Chip, if Vanderbilt does what you think they're going to do, win this game, get to 4-1 against AP ranked teams with only one ranked team to go at Tennessee to finish the season, are they pretty much a shoe-in for the playoff?
They are not going to be to Sharpie status just yet. I do not have Vanderbilt on my list of teams where 9-3 is good enough. But to your point, it would be what I like to call an egg and a spoon scenario, where they would just be running down the line with the egg and a spoon, trying not to drop it, just needing to take care of business the rest of the way. For teams that haven't been there before, and Vanderbilt certainly has already made history with this number 9 ranking, that can be even more difficult. But again, I think playing at Texas against the Longhorn logo, I think it's going to get every bit of Vanderbilt's attention.
Vandy has Auburn at home, then Kentucky at home before finishing the season at Tennessee. Speaking of Knoxville, playing host to a top 20 matchup, number 14 Tennessee, 3.5-point favorites against number 18 Oklahoma. Danny, both of these teams are 6-2. Is this a playoff eliminator here?
Yes, without question. The loser of this game is going home, and I think this one has massive stakes on the line here, too, because you talk about disappointing seasons based on preseason expectations. The loser of this one is not going to be happy, the losing fan base. As opposed to taking one of these sides, I'm going to go with yet another total here. This time I'm going over, though, because I do think Tennessee's offense, I think Joey Aguilar, I think Josh Heupel, I think Chris Brazzell, and that offense will be able to put up some points against Oklahoma's vaunted defense. That defense against some of the better competition, like Texas, like Ole Miss, they have not been as dominant as they've been against other teams. I think Tennessee will be able to put up some points and potentially even big points. On the flip side, Tennessee has been getting after the passer, but they like to take a lot of risks in doing so. I think that opens the door for some big plays for John Mateer and this Oklahoma Sooner offense, which has been struggling somewhat. And even if Oklahoma does struggle offensively, it might be some John Mateer interceptions that give short fields to Tennessee or potentially pick sixes. So I think this one is a higher scoring affair. I'll go over.
Even though the under in OU games is an FBS best 7-1 this season, Danny?
Doesn't scare me at all.
Okay, Chip, what's your play for this game?
That steely-eyed just confidence there. I love DK on a heater. I'm going to take Tennessee. I think Oklahoma's in trouble. Number one, this is the first and only night game that they'll get in Neyland Stadium. They've gone dark mode. I think the environment's going to be fantastic. That could be problematic as you think about Oklahoma's offensive line, the way it has struggled against the pass rush, and the fact that while Oklahoma is one of the best in the country in terms of sacking the quarterback, guess who's just 2 sacks behind him on the season? That's right, those Tennessee Volunteers. High variance Tennessee defense. They give up a couple explosive plays, but they also are among the nation's best in scoring touchdowns. But I'm going to go right back into my vibes bag here for 2 reasons. Big advantages for Tennessee, both of them. Number one, when we saw Josh Heupel get a little bit choked up in the locker room after beating Oklahoma, his alma mater, last season, woo, you can tell that it is not a soft, cushy, lovey relationship with the Tennessee head coach and the place where he was a superstar quarterback. And number two, there's an offensive analyst for Tennessee right now by the name of Seth Luttrell. Brent Venables fired Seth and put a lot of Oklahoma's offensive struggles at his feet as he shook up the offensive staff. Brent was asked this week if he's talked to Seth. Nope. Sounds like that's an icy relationship, too. I bet Seth is able to slide a couple of good man and zone beaters right across the table, give Tennessee the full playbook of how to pick apart this defense.
Love the revenge game aspects of that one. One more ranked game this weekend, ranked matchup. It's not the Big 12 championship rematch like we thought it might be, Arizona State, Iowa State. Neither one of those teams are ranked. It's number 17 Cincy at number 24 Utah. You can look at the injury reports, Danny, but I'm not sure what you're going to find out about Devin Dampier. There were some shenanigans last week. He was listed as probable at this time, and he didn't even play.
Yeah, I do not trust anything Kyle Whittingham says, alludes to, or puts on the injury report. He's been one of the tougher coaches in that aspect. But I don't think it matters, especially when it's coming to my play, whether it's Devin Dampier or Bird Ficklin, who came off the bench last week and looked phenomenal against a very, very weak Colorado defense. I mean, he had almost an entire game worth of stats in the first half alone. They just added insult to injury. I think Utah's offense will be able to score points, but on the other side, I do think Cincinnati will be as well. Brendan Sorsby is a name I've been buying up the stock of him on Day Trade Danny on Cover 3 for about a month now. He's up to 27 total touchdowns and 1 interception. This will be a big road challenge for him. And the thing I like about him, that if he doesn't get it done through the air, he can get it done with his legs too. He's one of the better dual threats out there. They're in a great position to pull off the upset. The number does have me concerned that maybe the odds makers know something I don't. But as far as the point total, I think it's going to be a little more points in this one, so I'll go over.
7-game winning streak for Cincinnati. Sorsby's thrown 20 touchdowns, 0 picks during that winning streak. But, Chip, they are without their top running back in this game. Their leading running back, Evan Pryor, is out.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, Scott Satterfield needs to take some lessons from the Kyle Whittingham injury report school. Yeah, we just find out here on a Wednesday, Evan Pryor, who's one part of that 2-headed monster with Tyree Walker, in addition to Brendan Sorsby, that he is going to be missing the game. That is going to be one less thing that Utah has to game plan for. I think that what we are going to see here is that for Cincinnati's defensive front, they are going to really struggle to be able to put, whether it is the law offices of Bird Ficklin or Devin Dampierre or whoever's at quarterback, it's going to be difficult to keep them behind the chains because of the way that they're able to move the line of scrimmage up front with Spencer Fano and the rest of that Utah offensive line. So I'm actually going to take the under here. I think that Cincinnati is a very good team, but this is a tough environment. And I think that Utah knows that with the muss, the mighty Utah student section backing them up, they can win a low-scoring grinder.
And if Utah does win, that would leave BYU as the only team unbeaten in Big 12 play. They are idle this week, are the Cougars. All right, coming up, Indiana on CBS this Saturday with the Heisman favorite looking to stay unbeaten and maybe lay another licking on a Big Ten opponent. We'll pick that big number next. We've got the Heisman favorite on CBS this Saturday, Fernando Mendoza, and the unbeaten Hoosiers hitting the road to College Park to take on a Maryland team that has 3 losses, but 3 losses by a combined 10 points. Indiana, one of 6 unbeatens in college football, along with number 1 Ohio State. They host Penn State this week. A&M and BYU both idle. Georgia Tech and Navy have road games that could be tricky. Navy's the only one of these teams not in the top 10. They're still not even ranked going to North Texas this week. All right, let's start with that Indiana-Maryland game. Chris Hassel with Chip Patterson and Danny Kanell. And Chip, the number's big. It's 21.5. I'll share that the same most recent opponent, Maryland, lost to UCLA by 3. Indiana beat UCLA by 50. So there you have it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy betting favorite that you mentioned. He is just totally in rhythm right now. Mike Shanahan's offense is one that is built so that if you understand the concepts, if you understand the reads, you always know where to go with the ball. And it doesn't matter whether it's Elijah Surratt or whether it's Omar Cooper or the rest of these Indiana wide receivers. They have stepped up and they have been ready to make the plays. There is a certain crispness. There is a certain relentlessness that Indiana has when they take care of the football, and they've been doing a great job of that. And also, Curt Cignetti, Danny and I were talking about this earlier on the Cover 3 podcast. He's really gassing up this Maryland defense in terms of where they rank at scoring defense nationally, their coaching staff. It's like he almost is setting us up for a lopsided score with Indiana putting up a big number on this Maryland defense. So if he sees it on tape, I'm going to trust him. I'm going to go Indiana team total over 36.
Almost everybody in the country has had some sort of letdown game. It was Alabama last week against South Carolina. You're thinking, holy cow, they could lose this game. They were only a 12.5-point favorite in that one. And you just look around, it happens everywhere except for Indiana. Their culture is so strong. The one game, their closest game, was against Iowa. I think now we're realizing Iowa is once again a pretty good football team. So it doesn't even look like that was a letdown. It was more about the opponent at Iowa. Maryland, to me, is the team that kind of has this MO where they come out strong out of the gates against weaker opponents, but then once they get to the Big Ten schedule, they sort of hit a wall, and all of a sudden they start to crumble, and that's where they are now. I think it continues. I think Curt Cignetti is still irritated by the narrative last season, and I think people are still criticizing Indiana's schedule and saying, well, they haven't played anybody. They haven't beaten anybody, even with that one against Oregon. So Curt Cignetti says, oh, really? You don't think we play anybody? Well, the teams we're going to play, we're going to absolutely destroy, annihilate, and unfortunately for Maryland, I think it is them this week. So I'll lay the 21.5.
And then they go to Penn State next week, a Penn State team that plays the top 2 teams in the country over the next couple of weeks. They're at number 1 Ohio State this week. This line, Danny, has moved about 17 points since the start of the season. The Buckeyes favored by 20.5 at home.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable how differently we've looked at these teams and how the season has unfolded for both of them. Ohio State looks like the best team in the country without any flaws. Penn State's been a disaster, obviously firing James Franklin. Ohio State really hasn't been tested since that game against Texas, and I've honestly looked at this and said, man, is this something that could hurt the Buckeyes in a game against Michigan in the last game of the year or the Big Ten championship game? And I actually think this is one of the better defensive fronts that they will have faced. So I think Ohio State is able to make this competitive. I would probably lean towards the under, which is already pretty low at 43.5. But I think Penn State, they show up in this game defensively. I think it'll be a good challenge for Julian Sayin and company. I could see maybe a 26-6 type game, just lower scoring, but I do think Penn State covers here and keeps it inside that 20.5.
That line's moved 17 points, Chip. Not enough for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that would be remarkable, Danny. If Penn State covers here, it'd be the first time all season Ohio State hasn't covered against a power conference opponent. That's right. The number cannot catch up to how good this Ohio State team is. And here's the problem. If you were going to get them, you should have gotten them early. Before Julian Sayin got comfortable in the big boy britches and started making big throws down the field. This thing is sitting under 21. That is a perfect time for us to go ahead and bite. And I would go ahead and take care of that now because this thing ain't going to move the other way, in my opinion. So as long as you're under 21, I'm going to go ahead and fire on this one because, again, the only time all season that we have seen Ohio State not cover was against Ohio. And if you think that Ryan Day and this Ohio State team are all of a sudden going to let up just because Penn State has an interim coach, well, then you are sorely mistaken because the Buckeyes have business to take care of, and it's about getting themselves ready to defend that title in the college football playoff. The business that is at hand will require a win of 21 points or more.
Second game under interim head coach Terry Smith, who almost led Penn State to a win at Iowa a couple weeks ago. They're coming off a bye. Also in the Big Ten, number 21, Michigan, that same number, 20.5 against Purdue. Chip, Michigan's won 2 straight by double digits after their only Big Ten loss to USC.
Yeah, the way that I was attacking this from a best bets perspective was starting to look at the totals because Purdue is a little frisky. You know, they're working on getting that offense going. I was listening to that coaching staff assess their development. They're very disappointed with the way that the game ended at Rutgers. A lot of coaching going into this week, trying to make sure that a couple of those drops, a couple of those execution issues get cleaned up. They're utilizing a pair of quarterbacks right now. And at first I was about to, talk myself into a Purdue team total over. But then I was like, come on, Chip. You know that if Purdue's going to hit the team total over, the whole game over is going to go, which means that I'm putting back on a comfy jacket called Michigan Home Overs, because before they won the national championship, that was kind of the modus operandi of this Michigan football team when they were at home, is it would be a spot where they would go out there, they'd hit a few more explosive plays, maybe even force a couple of turnovers and be able to throw a high 30s, low 40s number on the scoreboard. So if I think Purdue's offense is coming along, and if I think that Michigan could be back in Michigan home over mode, then yeah, don't try to talk yourself into Purdue team total over 14. Just take the whole game over. So Michigan, Purdue over 49.5.
This was one of my favorite plays earlier in the day when it was at 20.5, and then our producer James said, oh, that number went up to 21.5. So I still like it. I don't love it as much, and I'm going to lay it with the Michigan Wolverines. They're coming off a nice win last week against Michigan State, although it wasn't their best performance. And I actually think that's helped Sharon Moore and the Michigan staff to make sure that they take care of business this time in Purdue. Plus, Purdue has been miserable against ranked Big Ten opponents, 0-6 against the spread. I think that continues. I'll go ahead and lay them with the Wolverines.
Michigan has won 28 straight home games against unranked teams. Nebraska has lost 28 straight games against ranked teams. Nebraska is home against USC as a 6.5-point dog. Matt Rule, his losing streak to ranked teams goes all the way back to 2016 when he was at Temple. Danny, what's your play?
Make it 29. I think USC is the better football team. That Notre Dame loss, I thought, was a little deceiving. If you didn't pay attention to the game, you just went and looked at the score. It was a torrential downpour. I really think that slowed down Jade Maeva and Mekhi Lemon and some of the offensive weapons that USC had at their disposal. But most importantly, I still think Nebraska has some catching up to do with the big boys in the Big Ten, and I would include USC in that category. Remember, USC got that big win against Michigan where Lincoln Riley said, hey, we can compete with anybody. I think that does travel well, too, so I'll go ahead and lay the points with USC.
I'm kind of on a similar mindset as you, DK. I think USC is the better team. I think USC is going to have some offensive success here. I lean towards the cover, but the best bet is that they're going to be able to score against a Nebraska defense that has just looked a little bit outmatched. And I will say, as we're sitting here on a Wednesday, that I am taking this with the idea that the week off has allowed them to get a little bit healthier along the offensive line, starting center Killian O'Connor, starting left tackle Elijah Page, have been banged banged up a couple weeks ago, have been working their way back. Page dressed for that Notre Dame game, but didn't end up playing. And so I'm going to say that a healthier offensive line helps the run game, helps Jaden Maeva, and that USC is able to score. If Nebraska is going to even threaten for an upset, I think it's going to be more of a high-scoring affair. So my best bet will be Trojans team total over.
Black shirts wearing all black for this one on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time from Lincoln, trying to snap that long streak. These guys don't buy it, though. When we come back, we'll be moving on to the ACC. And believe it or not, SMU unranked is higher in the standings than 10th ranked Miami. And Miami's got to go on the road to SMU. Back here at CBS Sports HQ Spotlight, we do have a ranked team in action on Friday. Number 25, Memphis, on the road at Rice. They're laying almost 2 touchdowns here. Danny, Memphis with the leg up right now on that Group of 5 auto bid after the comeback win against South Florida last week.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal performance. Emotional game. Brendan Lewis, was he going to play? He does, and he plays exceptional. Big fourth quarter comeback, and they get it done. I think it is human nature here to come out and maybe feel yourself. Everybody's starting to put you in that Group of 5 position for the college football playoff. The only reason I wouldn't take, potentially Rice in this game is Rice hasn't been very good. So I could see Memphis slow starting, taking over it later. But on the totality of the game, I'm going to take the under because I do think it's a slower start to the game from Memphis. I think they wake up late, and I think ultimately their defense will be able to keep Rice in check for the most part. But I'm going to go ahead and just tackle the total and say it's a slower starting game. Defenses dominate early, and too little, too late to tackle that over. So I'll take the under.
What do you think, Chip?
Yeah, I love the way he's spinning this game because whether it was the first half under was something else I looked at, but I'll go ahead and bite. I'll go Rice in the first half plus 7.5. There is the human nature. There is the letdown. There is also the sandwich spot because, you came out of that game against South Florida. Who's coming up next? Oh, that's Tulane, an equally important game as it pertains to the championship race in the American and pursuing that college football playoff bid. Now, Danny's right. This Rice team against the better competition has been absolutely worked. Blown out by Houston, blown out by UTSA. Coming into this game off a win against UConn, maybe they've got a little bit of confidence, but the key stat here is time of possession. These are two of the teams that actually dominate time of possession as much as anybody else in the entire country, second only to Army in their own conference in the American, both more than 32 minutes of possession per game. So maybe Rice has that slow starting, keep the game close, hold on to the ball, and all of those things give them an opportunity to be within 7.5 points at halftime.
All right, nobody taking Memphis on the line, despite the fact they're 7-1 against the spread this season. Nobody has been better. Let's move on to Saturday, the noon slate involving number 10 Miami, minus 11.5 at SMU. It's a pretty big number on the road. Danny, you have left Florida more than Miami has so far this season.
That is true. They have not left the state to this date, right? This is their first trip outside the state of Florida. Well, they're headed to Dallas, which thankfully for them, it's not the most daunting environment to play in. They were a little bit sluggish, responding after their loss to Louisville. Slow start, it's tied at halftime, and then the offense wakes up late, scores 35 points in the second half to completely take control of it. SMU is coming off a rough loss to Wake Forest. SMU has fallen short of expectations this year. All of this tells me I think Miami's defense dominates the day. I think they'll slow down SMU's offense, which hasn't been quite as potent as it's been in years past. And I could see Miami, noon kick, early, a little bit of a sleepy environment. I could see them starting slower as well. So I'm going to take the under in the game.
Yeah, it cuts two ways when you're dealing with SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings. If you're an SMU fan, you're like, man, I love that he's out there gutting it out. He is obviously laboring. He is hurting. For those of us who got to pick that game, downgrade that SMU offense, especially when you're going up against the relentless pass rush where you need the escapability and the kind of talent that Kevin Jennings has when he's fully healthy. Danny, I'm with you. I think that Miami's defense carries the day. I think it might be a little bit more of a conservative approach. shocker for Miami, I know, but like just run the ball, play good defense. You get out with a win by any margin. Let's not sweat the spread. Let's just tackle the total. I'm also on the under.
SMU hasn't beaten a top 10 team since before the death penalty, the Pony Express back in 1980. Just down the road in Houston, also a noon Eastern time kickoff, 11 a.m. local time kickoff. It's Houston minus 13.5 against West Virginia, Danny.
So, first of all, I want to say Willie Fritz should be up for every Coach of the Year award. In year 2, he has this team towards the top of the Big 12 standings. Their only blemish, a loss to Texas Tech. He brings in Connor Wegman, builds a system around him that's really suitable to that style of play, and they are tough and physical on the defensive side of the ball. It has been a great, great story they're unfolding at Houston. And don't look now, because if they take care of business, I think they can beat UCF. I think they can beat TCU at home, and I think they can beat Baylor on the road. Are they locks? No, but I think they can win those. I would not be surprised if Houston has a shot at playing in the Big 12 championship game. All that being said, they have to take care of business against West Virginia at home. I will lay them. I trust this team. New to this territory, they're feeling it. There's going to be a great atmosphere there in Houston. I think they show up, and West Virginia has been struggling most of the season, so I think Houston wins easily.
Yeah, little note for that backs up Danny's pick. They're celebrating the 2015 Peach Bowl champions. Tom Herman will be there. Greg Ward Jr. will be there. A lot of good vibes there around Houston football as they are recounting what happened beating Florida State 10 years ago. I've been looking at this, and I've been trying to figure out West Virginia, and I think I have found an edge that might give us an opportunity, and it has to do with the instability at the quarterback position. I understand that's a little bit confusing. It seems like they've had no healthy quarterbacks, but against TCU, even though it was a 6-point loss, they found something with we can't even call him a starting, with freshman quarterback Scotty Fox Jr. He stepped into the game. He threw for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 68.3% completion percentage. Fox set new West Virginia freshman records with those 301 passing yards. I just wonder if a new quarterback, slightly new offensive approach, if Rich Rodriguez is able to give his team a chance to at least be competitive. That said, I don't trust West Virginia's defense. And so looking at Scotty Fox, looking at the quarterback change as maybe a chance to get an edge, I'll go West Virginia team total over. Think Houston wins the game. I think it's going to be a great day celebrating the Peach Bowl champs, but maybe all the quarterback instability gives the Mountaineers a slight edge in the matchup.
Houston also playing with heavy hearts and inspiration. They lost their strength coach before last week's game, Kurt Hester. I'm sure they'll be playing for him the rest of the season. We have more games to pick in the top 25 with Chip and Danny, including Georgia, Florida, or Florida, Georgia. Whichever side you're on, maybe an upset in Jacksonville. A couple of weeks ago, Louisville stunning Miami in Miami. They're back on the road again, where they've been better. 2 big wins, Miami and Pittsburgh. It's the only 2 games that Louisville's covered in this season. On the road at Virginia Tech this week, as we welcome you back to our college football picks. Chris Hassel with Chip Patterson and Danny Cannell. And Chip, Virginia Tech, a team that fired Brent Pry after that 0-3 start, has been significantly better since that firing.
They certainly have, and they have not let go of the rope. They are not packing their things. They are not looking ahead to the transfer portal. I've been incredibly impressed by the way that this Virginia Tech team has focused on the now and really turned in some impressive efforts, including a double overtime win against Cal last Friday night at home. You know, the fan support for this team, even under an interim coach, the way that the players have stayed bought in. In fact, it probably makes Virginia Tech look even more attractive in terms of the way that it appears to any potential candidates. But for me, I got to throw all that out the window, and I got to look at the way that this Virginia Tech team has moved the football, because with Kyron Drones leading the way, they've still been effective offensively in recent weeks, and I think that that's going to be a big piece of trying to take down Louisville. Now, will Virginia Tech successfully take down this Cards team? I'm a little bit skeptical, but at 10 and a hook, I really like the chances of Louisville to walk into Lane Stadium, enter Sandman and the like, and find it very difficult to get out, because if Virginia Tech's able to slow down Isaac Brown, I think Kyron Drones can give them a chance.
Well, that's a big win against Cal. That was really good. Jeff Brom is one of the best coaches in the country right now. There's a reason his name, even though he played at Louisville and it's his hometown, has started to come up in some of these coaching searches. Isaac Brown, Chris Bell, Miller Moss, too much firepower for Virginia Tech. I don't care where the game is played. Give me Louisville. I'll lay the points. Although this whole weekend does make me nervous. We were talking about this earlier. The amount of ACC teams that are sitting in the top 25 that look like they're in great position to make playoff runs. A lot of them on the road as favorites. Which one's going to come up short? I don't think it's Louisville.
They only have one loss. They don't play another ranked team. They don't have to play Georgia Tech or Virginia. They might end up 11-1 and not even be in the ACC
it's easy, right?
Game.
I mean, that's all you got to do
right.
is just keep winning.
Just put the Sharpie. Just put it in there.
Danny's confident. Notre Dame with a big number on the road. Minus 28.5 at BC. All these games we're talking about here in this block in that 3 o'clock Eastern time window. That's kind of the theme in this block is ranked teams going on the road with big numbers. Is it big enough, though, Chip?
No. I'd lay this all the way up to 31. I think that Notre Dame is going to walk into Chestnut Hill, and I think that they are just going to lean on that ground game and run right through Boston College. This is an Eagles team that's been in absolute free fall, and I think that it's another opportunity, like some of these other games against lesser ACC teams, for Notre Dame's defense to be able to continue to gain confidence. They were much maligned because they were diced up at the beginning of the season by the likes of Texas A&M and Miami. We look up, and Texas and A&M and Miami are two of the best teams in the entire country. So I've got Notre Dame being able to win this thing handily. And if you want to talk about the Boston College upset, this is not the red bandana game. That will be next week. So maybe the Boston College superstar might actually be in play next week, but not this week against the Fighting Irish.
Boy, that's a big number. That is too many points for me. I'm going to go ahead and take it just on the principle. And BC has been struggling this year. Bill O'Brien, it started off, looked promising. You switch quarterbacks to Dylan Lonergan. All of a sudden, you're going back to Grayson James. Like you've played a bunch of different quarterbacks trying to figure this thing out. I just think it's too many points, especially I don't even think we're not even talking about Notre Dame needing any style points anymore. Everybody says just run the table. As long as you win, you're 10-2, you're in because your losses were so close. So I think without that incentive, Chestnut Hill, Boston College, it's the Fighting Irish. There's a nice little rivalry here between these two schools. I'll say BC gives it enough effort to keep it barely inside that number. I'll take the 28.5.
Boston College, 8 straight losses to FBS teams. Still don't have an FBS win this season. Let's go to number 5, Georgia, against Florida in Jacksonville. Danny, this is Florida's first game since firing Billy Napier.
Yeah, I actually like the Gators here. I think the Gators will come out with an emotionally charged team that kind of has the weight of the world off their shoulders because we've been talking about this for a year and a half. What's at stake for Billy Napier? And if they don't play well, is he going to get fired? Well, now that they know that, all of a sudden they can go out there and play with a little bit more freedom. And also, by the way, one of the biggest criticisms Billy Napier had was the offensive play calling. So now that he's gone, I think the offense might have some more wrinkles in it to it, including maybe a little bit more DJ Lagway in the run game that actually keep Georgia on their heels somewhat. The other aspect to this, as good as Georgia is, I don't think they're the great Georgia team that we've seen, rattle off multiple national championships. I don't think they're as dominant defensively or offensively. And I still think Florida's roster is pretty talented along the offensive and defensive lines. Rivalry game, over a touchdown, that's 7 and a hook. I'll take the Florida Gators as the underdog all day long.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right there with you. It's funny. I kind of think that this is the first time I've really been able to be a Georgia disrespecter. And it feels good to have those pants back on. It's a familiar pair of pants, but I do think that this is a dangerous spot for the Dogs. I'd put them on outright upset alert. I don't hate the way Danny's taking the 7 and a hook. There is something to be said for the fact that this was one of the 20 most talented rosters in the country, but underperformance led to a coaching change. They're also healthier now, especially at the wide receiver position, than they were at the beginning of the season when they got off to that 1-3 start. I'm looking at, yes, the changes in play caller could end up helping DJ Lagway. I'm looking at Dallas Wilson and these wide receivers maybe able to pop a few big plays. And I went and I checked out the team total here, 20.5. Let's go. Dial that up. Florida Gators team total over. I think they get to 21. I think they threaten the Dogs in Jacksonville.
This is the last time they're going to play this game in Jacksonville, at least until 2028. They're going to renovate the stadium. Next year it'll be Atlanta, the year after in Tampa. What do you think, Danny, about this game never being played on campus?
I think that's this and Red River, the Oklahoma-Texas ones, where they're the only ones that are so unique, that have so much tradition at a neutral site, that is drivable between two schools. I'm okay with it. I've got a bunch of friends who are Florida, players and Georgia players. They all rave about the atmosphere and what a great party it is, and the greatest cocktail party known to man. And it's incredible. So this is one of the ones. This one in Oklahoma, Texas, because there's tradition, because there's history behind it, I'm actually okay with it. Because normally I don't like neutral site games. We see that very trendy recently in the last decade of college football, but I think this one gets a pass.
And this is one, too, where when we talk about the impact of can Florida pull off the upset, vibes of Florida fans are going to be house money. But Florida fans had these tickets bought. They rented that house. They were still going to be there one way or the other. And now they're going into this without feeling like they need to boo anyone or chant fire Napier. No, they are just rooting for the players on the field. Look for maybe a boisterous and supportive crowd from Florida that you might not have had if you didn't make the coaching change.
Trying to snap that 45-game winning streak Georgia has against unranked opponents dating back to pre-COVID 2019. Also 3:30 Eastern time, Texas Tech, about a touchdown favorite at a K-State team that's playing much better football of late. Danny, Tech's Behren Morton is ready to go after missing the last two games with a leg injury.
Yeah, I don't know if this is insulting to Kansas State fans or not, but I think they might be the best 4-4 team in the country. At least they're playing like it. They, after that Ireland hangover, they started so rough. They had the loss to Army. It was shockingly bad, but Chris Klieman has this team clawing away for tooth and nail for every single win. The Behren Morton news coming back, I think, is good, but I'm still very curious to see what their plan of attack is. Now that Will Hammond is lost, do they get a little bit more run-based, realizing, hey, we're getting a little bit thin at quarterback. Do we slow the pace down somewhat and try to maintain and keep healthy for the end of the season? I mentioned Kansas State. I think their defense is pretty stout. We know what Texas Tech's defense is capable of doing, so I'm going to go ahead and rely on those defenses to shine in this one. I'll go under.
We know this Texas Tech team is totally different this season, Chip, with all the NIL money they spent, but Kansas State's owned them. They've won 8 straight in this series.
Yeah, and 12 of 13. I mean, it is like ridiculous how Kansas State sees those colors and just rises up and brings their A game. I think that this is a dangerous spot for Texas Tech, and I think everybody should have followed Tom Fornelli's advice. We should have wrapped Texas Tech in bubble wrap weeks ago and just named them the Big 12 champions, because that team was awesome, but they are banged up, not just at quarterback, also at defensive line. I think Kansas State is live dog to win, but at 7.5, absolutely I will take those points. Avery Johnson, Kansas State, playing some of their best football this season right now. I agree with Danny on that one.
Kansas State's won 3 of 4 after that 1-3 start. One more game in that 3 o'clock Eastern time window, 3:45 Eastern. Uh-oh, Danny, it's your Cal Bears that you were making fun of earlier. They are 4.5-point home dogs to number 16 Virginia. What do you think?
Boy, Virginia was in a dogfight last weekend. If Carolina gets that 2-point conversion, they're tucking their tail. What a missed opportunity we had this season. But that's exactly what Tony Elliott and company needed to make sure this team is buttoned up on the road out there to Berkeley. Chandler Morris, big bounce-back game for the Cavaliers. I think they get it. Cal has been a good story this season, but I think the worst thing that happened to Cal was what happened to Virginia last week. So I'll say Virginia. I'll lay them here on the road with the Cavaliers.
This Virginia offense has gotten a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse every week since the Florida State win. Chandler Morris, we talked about them being wide open. They really weren't even that great against Louisville. Then, of course, you mentioned the North Carolina game, the Washington State game. They played poor. It just feels like either the book is out or they've regressed. Either way, I think it leads to a lower scoring performance. We got a little 12:45 local time kickoff. So I'm going to be targeting specifically the first half under 27.5. Whether it is the travel or whether it just is that the Virginia offense is taking a step back, I think it's low scoring early.
2 really interesting road games for the 2 unbeaten teams in ACC play. Virginia all the way to Cal. And look at Georgia Tech. They've got to go to Chip's neck of the woods to take on NC State, and the number's not very big, 5.5. We'll pick that one next. We know the saying, good teams win, great teams cover.
Wow.
South Carolina's not winning, but they're covering under Shane Beamer against top 10 teams. They've done it 6 straight times dating back to 2022, including last week when they nearly beat Alabama. They are getting 12.5 this week at Ole Miss. Danny, what's your play?
So I'm going to go back to the well once again because I did back the Gamecocks last week, said hold your nose, don't even watch, just somehow, some way this is going to work out, and it did. And then, you come in, am I worried about South Carolina? Where are they mentally after just unloading there in Columbia? It was at home. Now they got to take it on the road. But I also think there's a similarity with Ole Miss because Ole Miss is coming off a few weeks where they had the road loss against Georgia. It was emotional. They lost that game. Then they go on the road and they had the big win against Oklahoma. And now they're sitting there, everyone's punching their ticket saying they're in the college football playoff. Lane Kiffin is everyone's favorite coach right now, getting talked about for, whatever head job he wants. I think that can be a little bit distracting. I still think this South Carolina team is fighting for Shane Beamer, so I'm going to go ahead and count on that effort to keep it within that number. I think Ole Miss wins. Very same line as last week. I'll go ahead and take those 12.5 points.
Yeah, y'all have heard of a home field advantage. What about a Grove field disadvantage? When the party is so good outside the stadium, little bit slow to get in. We got a high of 63 degrees, about 58 at kickoff. We're talking quilted vests. We're talking the finest sweaters. We are talking a really good party for this Ole Miss team outside the stadium. So I'm going to go slow starting game. South Carolina maybe a little frisky defensively early. First half under 27.5.
Yeah, we saw that a few weeks ago when they were hosting Washington State, and they had to come back in the second half just to win that game as a huge favorite. One more ranked game to pick. Number 8, Georgia Tech, 5-0 in conference for the first time, Danny, since they were in the SEC 70 years ago. The line is 5.5 at NC State.
This game terrifies me for Brent Key and company with Georgia Tech. And I love this team. I love Haynes King. I love all that they stand for. We talked about those ACC teams that are going on the roads as favorite. Georgia Tech sitting in the driver's seat in front of all of them. And yet this is only a 5.5 point spread. Like, what do the odds makers know that I don't? Carter Finley is a very tough place to play. Dave Doran is a great football coach, but they have fallen so short of expectations this season. But I'm going to go ahead and listen to the odds makers. I'm going to go ahead and take NC State as the home dog. Georgia Tech did flirt with disaster a few weeks ago against Wake Forest on the road. Maybe this is a similar type situation. I think Georgia Tech wins, but I think this one could get a little bit dicey.
Yeah, I think even in some double-digit wins, we've seen some flaws with Georgia Tech's defense. Haynes King is so awesome. We don't talk about it a lot, but Virginia Tech moved the ball through the air a little bit. Duke moved the ball through the air a little bit. And NC State does have C.J. Bailey, very, very talented quarterback who might be able to find similar success. But NC State's defense can't stop a nosebleed, and I think this is going to be the only thing that would surprise me is a low-scoring affair. So whether it is close or whether it is a Georgia Tech runaway, either way, I think we go over the total.
They picked every game, every ranked team against the spread, sometimes on the total. Chip, you guys are also on the Cover 3 podcast. Give us your best tease for today's Cover 3.
Oh, today it was big game breakdown, but it wasn't just a couple big games, Chris. We're talking about everything from the top of the slate to the bottom, storylines to watch, and so much more.
Chip Patterson, Danny Kanell, and many more. Tom Fornelli, Bud Elliott. Cover 3 podcast. Scan that QR code. It'll take you right there.